it's number 7 team in the country, and you can debate that ranking with if they should be ranked above Michigan, given that they played head to head just a few weeks ago. But that's not what we're here to do. A top 10 team nonetheless. If for people who haven't watched, for Ohio State people that haven't watched Michigan State much this year, this is a much different team under Mel Tucker than last year. Obviously, everyone had a weird year, but he was still really, and his staff were still really trying to figure out everything in East Lansing after coming over. I think it took some time. Obviously, not all the pieces were there. They had to turn to the transfer portal for quite a few players they're now making an impact, most notably Kenneth Walker III, the running back, who should certainly be in the Heisman Trophy conversation in my book. He's been one of, if not the best running backs in the country this year, really helped that offense become two-dimensional. Peyton Thorne, who played some against Ohio State last year, has been very good at quarterback, but now you've got kind of that multifaceted attack, which has been a handful, no doubt about it. And, even I mentioned that Michigan game, they were down 16 points, just kind of kept going, were able to come back. It's kind of been, Michigan State just fighting throughout the year, and they've done a good job. The defense, especially the pass defense, I think it's one of the worst, if not the worst in the country. So that's a potential area where Ohio State could look to exploit. But when we talked to Garrett Wilson today, obviously he's going to say all the right things, doesn't want a bulletin board material, but he said, look, I know the numbers, and I still see a team that's going to cause us some issues. This Ohio State passing attack is really hitting on all cylinders again after last week and getting all their pieces back. But, they could use another game. And obviously Michigan State views this as a pretty big challenge. So it should be a fun one at the Horseshoe. Like you said, it's kind of this gauntlet that's been most of the second half of this season that will end with these next 2 games and maybe a Big Ten championship and a college football playoff after that.
So Ohio State explodes against Purdue, and this is a Purdue defense that hadn't come anywhere close to having this done to it this season. They've been just one of the better units in the conference, and Ohio State explodes on them for the 59 points, could have been 66. And so the red zone issues were no more suddenly for at least one game, and everything was hitting on all cylinders.
I think having everyone back really made a difference. And I know just on paper, it was Garrett Wilson that missed 2 weeks ago at Nebraska. And obviously they had some struggles against Penn State as well. And frankly, I think some of the Penn State struggles were just Penn State's a good team, knows how Ohio State plays. James Franklin's very familiar with Ryan Day, and Brett Pry, their defensive coordinator, is familiar with the Buckeyes. And so they were able to scheme and did a decent job. I think against Nebraska, you had offensive linemen dealing with some digestive issues from some food that they ate. We learned about afterwards. DeJuan Jones didn't start that game. So you start off with a mixed bag on the offensive line. You don't have Garrett Wilson, arguably one of the best receivers, not arguably, one of the best wide receivers in college football. Julian Fleming steps in for him. And I think it was just, there was a spoke out of the tire, so to speak, to use that metaphor. And obviously Ohio State still put up very good numbers, couldn't score as much. But I think you saw last week, everyone healthy, Garrett Wilson back in there, the offensive line ready to go. And it looked like the Ohio State team we saw from the Akron game through the Indiana game, I think it was, in terms of the offense. I've written about it a couple of times. When this offense is rolling, and I've said it on here, I don't know a team that can stop them. I think you saw that again. You mentioned Purdue had been good defensively, and there was just no answer. They scored touchdowns on the first 6 possessions, field goal on the 7th, finally have to punt and then score a touchdown again. I mean, the game was over at halftime. Purdue makes it look a little bit closer than it was. And you can argue Ohio State should have kept their foot on the gas and, maybe put more points on the board in the second half. I think it ended up being 14-14 in the second half scoring. But the Buckeyes had the job done. They managed the game well. I think the committee will view that as a very good win when we get to college football playoff rankings for this week. And yeah, I think this offense is just rolling. You take these last 2 weeks for what they are, but when everybody's healthy, when they're going, I just don't know how you slow this down. There's just too many weapons, too many experienced players. CJ Stroud's playing very well. He was 31 of 38, his best completion percentage, threw for 5 touchdowns for the 3rd time this year. I mean, the numbers just keep coming. Travion Henderson didn't even have 100 yards, still 2 touchdowns. And then Mayan Williams comes in and gets 117 yards. So it's there's just a lot of weapons here, and they're all getting fed right now. And it's good to be a member of this Buckeye offense.